What up, nation? Welcome to another edition of the Wise Take NBA DFS First Look. CK013 here. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. And I represent the Wise Take Nation, which you can follow on Twitter at Wise_Take or visit directly at wisetake.com. We are a daily fantasy community. We are a DFS premium content provider. Our goal is to help make you better at DFS, make you a better DFS player. With that said, yesterday, if you're watching this live, it's technically today, but most of you are going to be watching this on Tuesday, which means yesterday for most of y'all was probably one of my worst NBA DFS slates ever. And it happens. You know, sometimes you just got to take the L and just kind of move on. One of the benefits of NBA is that it's every day, and so you get another crack at it. A lot of the chalk busted, which most nights is good when you're not on the chalk. I was heavily on the value plays when stars and scrubs. We talked about on the Y stream and in everybody's article, we kind of talked about the low owned balance build, and I didn't have enough of those, and it was bad. Take the L. Gotta take the L. That's it. Horrible. But looking for a bounce back, as always. You win $2,000, you know, you win, you take first in a donkey, and, you know, next thing you know, 4 or 5 days later, it's just all of a sudden, it's just, wow, you get hit with your worst day. Probably ever, hopefully ever. But again, looking to bounce back. You know, I'm going to go over some of my mistakes tomorrow, and we're going to do the dirty at the nation, because that's what we do. All we do is bounce back. We don't quit. Real quick, guys, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Hit the notifications bell so you're notified whenever we do go live or put out any kind of content. We do cover a lot of NFL. We do baseball in the summer, basketball. We do all kinds of free DFS content, sports betting content, all kinds of stuff. So make sure you're subscribed. Do me a favor before we continue. Do me a favor and like the video. Just be a swell individual. Just be a swell individual and like the video. Goal today, 75 likes. Let's make it happen. And the nation will do the dirty. How about that? 75 likes and the nation will do the dirty. All right. I'm warmed up. Let's hop in. 3-game slate, a little bit of a later start. Those of you who are subscribed to ysec.com, the live stream we do for our members, the Y stream, will be half an hour later. So it'll be at 5:30 instead of 5. We always do it 2 hours. We try to do it 2 hours before lock. So looks like lock is set back to 7:30, giving everybody Eastern, giving everybody a little extra time. Atlanta, Miami, should be pretty popular. The first game always is. The Miami situation, certainly interesting, with Jimmy Butler expected to return after the birth of his daughter. Dion Waiters apparently is out. I'm reading that could change. It says that Waiters was expected to rejoin the Heat on Monday after missing the first 3 games of the season due to a suspension, but it appears as though he will miss at least one more contest. However, Ira Winderman of the South Florida Surf Sentinel, reports that Waiters' status could change between now and Tuesday night. So he's beefing with the team, so not really sure. We'll want to know as of now. We'll just go on as if he's out. With Butler coming back, it's kind of curious. We should see Nunn move back to the bench, I would assume. Putting Winslow back at point guard, maybe. With Dion Waiters out, Tyler Hero was the one expected to start. I wonder what they'll do with Nunn. They could always start Nunn instead. We'll have to see what the starting line looks like. This is, we think, a pace boost for Atlanta. Now, if you look at pace now for this year, it's obviously too small of a sample, but Atlanta's near the bottom. I have noticed that the games haven't been as high scoring, but they have played some slower teams. They played Philly tonight, and even that game wasn't all that high scoring. So I'm wondering if this is a trend we continue to see as we get a bigger sample. But normally you would think that he'd have a pretty big pace boost here, and I think as of right now, this is the game with the actual highest game total from Vegas. So the Miami side, is attractive. If Jimmy Butler does play, you got to wonder. He hasn't. I don't think he's played one regular season game. He did play in the preseason, so he should be good to go. 7-7 is expensive. Probably just kind of leaving that for tournaments. And on the tournaments, you can ride the whole, daddy narrative thing, right? Just had a baby. I'm assuming it's his first kid the way they're acting. But I'll tell you who's a good play, though, who stands out. And she's going to be very popular. But Bam Adebayo seems way too cheap for this particular spot. With Whiteside gone, we're seeing him get grown man run. Against Memphis, that game kind of blew out, so it didn't really need him. But as long as the game stays close, which to Atlanta's credit, they have been playing teams tough this year. This is a back-to-back for Atlanta, so maybe a different story. But you can see in these closer games, Bam has played a good amount. Now, 38 minutes, that was an overtime game against Milwaukee. But the 32 against Minnesota was promising, and he's doing it when he's on. He didn't even get a double-double. It still went for 40. So against Atlanta, a team that has struggled historically against big, I think Embiid did it to him. I think Embiid did it to him tonight. No. Think so. Think that's what happened. Let's see. What else we got? So I'm going to put Bam to the side so remember that. I think I'll stop, depending on who's in and who's out. I know that Derrick Jones is out. I know that James Johnson's still not ready. Kelly Olynyk is questionable, so we got to see how thin they could end up. We could be looking at some of the value plays. Like Chris Silva is a point per minute machine. He just doesn't get a chance to play a ton, and he's got a big foul trouble issue. So that's deep. And Miami's kind of heading in the opposite direction. They're getting less, or they're getting more deep. So probably not. Myers Leonard though, 3,300 could see an uptick if Olynyk and what's his name? Olynyk and why am I blanking on his name right now? Dion Waiters, I guess. All of them, really. Olynyk, I guess, is the key. Olynyk's only 4K. It's going to be a tricky matchup on the other side of the ball against John Collins, who's super hyper, super athletic. But Olynyk has upside. He can also really shit the bed like he did for me against Minnesota. That happens. On the Atlanta side, I think it's Trae Young, right? We can talk about a lot of these guys, but I think it's Trae Young. He's probably the first one. Kind of comes to mind. Yeah, he's 9K. I played him tonight a little bit. Didn't do as well, but it wasn't far off. The minutes were a little lower. Funny how I commented on how big his minutes were, and they were a little lower. I guess because of the back-to-back, they were somewhat conscious, I guess. But you can see he took 5 less overall shots, 5 less threes, and he only made 2 threes. I think that was the big difference. 3 less rebounds, had the same amount of assists, 9. He's just a machine. The usage for him is incredible. We looked against Detroit, against Orlando. His usage rate was in the 40s. It's too crazy. So I'm gonna take Trae from this one. Let's see. We'll go to Dallas, Denver. This is a back-to-back for Denver. This is the lowest total on the slate. It's not far. I think Atlanta, Miami is 226. Memphis, LA is 220, and Dallas is 216 or something. I think that's what it is. I don't have it in front of me. It's the night before. You know what I mean? Just reading the chat, and they always make me laugh. Luka seems like a good play every day, right? Luka's playing a ton. Luka's just balling. 9.5 is probably still too cheap for what he's doing. Denver plays a little slower. They play pretty good defense, and they're going to be playing in the altitude. They have a true home court advantage. But how can you not like Luka every day? You know what else is interesting is Jokic has not been good on defense. So normally Millsap clogs things up down low, and that kind of frees things open for Jokic. But Jokic has not been a good defender. And that leads me to, now keep in mind that Dwight Powell went through a full practice on Monday. He's battling with a left hamstring strain. He was able to go through practice. He hasn't been able to play. If he's in, that's going to make things a little murky. If he's out again, Maxi Kleber is only 3,700. He's been playing minutes with power out. He's been playing pretty well. I'm not saying it's like a lock situation. It's Maxi Kleber at the end of the day. You could just go Porzingis, who will play some 5 as well, and is getting good minutes. This is the big difference with Porzingis is you can look the first 2 games he played 29 minutes apiece. That last game against Portland, when he finally hit that 50, breaking that 50 DraftKings point threshold, played 34 minutes. Minutes is money. So if he's going to be playing that type of, he's going to be giving us that many minutes. It's going to make us interested. But right now, the usage for Porzingis and Luka combined, they're just doing things that are just crazy. I mean, could have played them both against Portland, and they both returned you pretty solid value, especially Luka, who's just been incredible. Yeah, I'll take Luka for now, but yeah. As far as tournaments go, you've got options. Tim Hardaway looks like he's just kind of rotting away over there, not really doing anything. Brunson and Delon Wright are always in play. But I think the main guys you're going to want the most exposure to are going to be Luka and Porzingis, no doubt. On the Denver side, with that said, Jokic is also in a really good spot on the other side. Jokic against Phoenix played 41 minutes. The game went to overtime. We know he's got massive ability. I think my problem with Jokic is he doesn't choose to centralize the offense around himself sometimes. Against Portland, looks like he got into some foul trouble against Whiteside. But you can see his assist number is only 2. Against Phoenix, he had 12. Granted, he played, 7 more minutes. But certainly a viable tournament play. Paul Millsap continues to be cheap. He's not playing a ton. He didn't play much against Phoenix. That's kind of interesting. He's cheap, though. So who did play? Did Grant play? Yeah, Grant played a lot. Wow. Must have been a matchup thing. Man. Will Barton, man. We know how much upside he's got. You just don't know, again, rotationally, right? It's just kind of matchup based. Jamal Murray, I think, is pretty solid. His usage has looked pretty good. 6,600 is not a bad price. I don't mind it. Gary Harris hasn't done a ton, but the minutes have looked really good. He's one of their better defenders. 34, 35 minutes. If he could stay out of foul trouble, depending on who they make him guard, I usually like to pair him with Jokic. They make a nice little assist, 1-2 deal. Denver, I'm not all that interested in at the moment. The Memphis Laker game, this is last game, late night hammer. I think that Memphis really looks bad defensively, especially against point guards. Rajon Rondo is questionable. He's only 4,300 if he does play, just putting that out there. And the only reason I'm mentioning it is because of how bad Memphis has been to point guards. We went pretty heavy on Kyrie the other day, and that worked out, phenomenally. You know what I mean? Quinn Cook balled out. Look at that. Quinn Cook against Charlotte. That game was a blowout, though. He got some blowout runs, so he was balling, though. He was. But LeBron, you're getting a lot of point guard LeBron. We haven't seen a ceiling from either AD or LeBron. I'm sure that AD and LeBron will be popular because they're good players and people love them. They're popular players in general. The question is, can Memphis hang around this game long enough? They're both in phenomenal spots. Memphis has not played defense well. They particularly struggle with bigs, guys like Anthony Davis, and point guards, who right now is LeBron James. So they do appear to be in a really good spot, for tournament purposes. Second highest total game on the slate. Lakers aren't playing very fast, but Memphis is. So the Lakers are actually being kind of paced up. Now, I'm using a smaller sample, but we have seen Memphis a part of some pretty high-scoring games. Granted, the Nets game did go to overtime, but it's an interesting spot for them. I'm a little worried about Memphis coming off that overtime game. They really pushed it to put out a win. The Lakers are pretty good. I'm just saying, they're pretty good. Starting with the Memphis side, I guess we'll see the Lakers for last. Ja Morant, man, this dude looks good. Interesting though how he only played, if you look at his minutes, 25 minutes in the first game, 28 in the second, 32 against Brooklyn in an overtime game. In 32 minutes, he went for 50. This dude's going to be good. Is this if the game stays close, you would think he's got to have something to do with that, right? 7-1 is kind of steep. I'll admit that. But if you are playing a tournament build where this game stays close, Dylan Brooks, very scoring dependent, but going to take shots coming off a good game. It's kind of scary. You look at these guys coming off good games. Looks like Kyle Anderson is questionable. Left calf soreness. He's an interesting value option. But if he's out, then I think Brooks will play a ton. And it may open up some of this other stuff. Jay Crowder's been really consistent. They've been playing him a lot over there. He's been really consistent. 5,200 of his prices come up a little bit. Jaren Jackson, if he could stay out of foul trouble. They finally raised Brandon Clark's price, who we were playing him a ton when he was cheap. And he was giving us value for a cheap guy. Now, you want a little more than that. Here's the situation with Clark. He's rotating in as the backup 4, the backup 5. So Joe Val is slowly getting his minutes increased. Like by 2 minutes every game. That's what they've done. And so Clark was picking up his minutes. Things were good. And Clark's minutes, if you noticed, have not gone down. And that's because Jaren Jackson has been in foul trouble every day. So he's had to back up Jaren Jackson a lot. And so I'm just worried about how much he's going to play. We saw in the preseason this dude's a pretty high point per minute guy. At 5,100, I don't think anyone is really going to play him. And it's kind of interesting in tournaments if you do have Jackson shares to do builds where like you don't have Jackson, you have him instead just in case the foul trouble thing. I don't know. I don't know. How do I do it? I don't know. How do I do it? I don't know. Joe Val smashed against Brooklyn. But as Paulie D would say, everybody smashes against Brooklyn. 20 minutes. I guess they're going to do this like gradual increase. He didn't play it all in the preseason. Maybe he gets 22. The problem is when he's got JaVale McGee on the court, it should be money. But when Dwight Howard comes in, it's going to make life a little more difficult. But Joe Val is a good player. The Lakers side a little bit easier to play, but that's only because you kind of know where you're going with LeBron and AD. There are some value guys. It sucks playing Avery Bradley. What happened to that guy, man? Danny Green could get hot. We know that. That's what he does. He shoots. So you never know. 30s and 7s. Dwight Howard's look pretty good in limited minutes. JaVale McGee's really cheap. We talked about Memphis also struggling against centers. Now, Joe Val's going to change that, right? Like, the Raptors were like that. When Joe Val started, they weren't as bad against centers, right? When Ibaka started, they were getting destroyed by centers. So, in theory, you would think that this would be a better matchup for Dwight if JaVale starts. But it's probably just the best matchup for AD at all of them, right? Anthony Davis, the brow, right? Yeah. Yep. Oh yeah. Let's see. I think that's gonna do it. I guess if I was gonna, the Memphis guy I'm gonna hold on for. The Laker, as of right now, I'll go with AD. It's kind of interesting, but Bam is looking. I mean, Bam should be pretty chalky. He's looking like out of all these guys, he's the easiest to click by far, right? I mean, 7K, probably underpriced, in a nut matchup. Sounds good to me. And that's gonna do it for today's first look. Do me a favor, guys, if you haven't already. I told you at the beginning of the show to like the damn video. Much appreciated. For those of you that did, appreciate you. Don't forget to check us out at ystate.com for more fire DFS content, updated content. Right now it's 11:50 p.m. Eastern, doing this the night before, as we always do for these first looks. But tomorrow I will be diving in with my Wise Take analysts, and we will be, just figuring out how to take over the DFS world. That's what we do every day, Pinky in the Brain style. You can get a day pass if you want to try out our content without committing for $2.50. You'll get access to all the NBA DFS content. The only thing you don't get is the Slack chat. Slack chat is for monthly members or higher. But I do recommend you get in there, especially with, and NBA, the way it is injury news. We have injury feeds going in there, all kinds of stuff. But, get in there. You'll learn how to be a better player quicker when you're more active and you're, in there talking it up with the other members and some of the analysts and picking their brains and whatnot. $2.50. You get the content. Tomorrow's content a little more light, only a 3-game slate, or Tuesday's content, I should say. A little more light, no cheat sheets. I will be doing a core article. Normally we only do it for 4-game slates or higher, but I will do a core article. Stevie Brown on the slate breakdown, covering cash and tournaments. And we'll do a live stream, which is a live stream we do 2 hours before lock, after we've all done our research and, doing dirts. With that said, for myself, the entire Wise Take Nation, as always, good luck.
Yes.